Hey, welcome to Mooney Reads. My name is Beck, and today I'm going to be talking about my July TBR. This month I'm going to be participating in a group read as well as 2 readathons. The one book that I'm going to read outside of all of that is Moving Politics by Deborah Gould, which I was supposed to finish last month, but I didn't. Still have the same amount left. I really want to actually finish the last third of this book in July. The group read that I'm going to be participating in actually started in June and goes through July, and that is the group read that was set up by Melanated Reader on Instagram for Stamped from the Beginning. Now with this group read, you could read Stamped from the Beginning or Stamped, which is the young adult version of that. I kind of wanted to read them together, but I think I'm just going to read all of this one and then read Stamped afterwards. This is also one of the books that was on my History of People of Color in the United States TBR. Now, so far as the readathons go, I'm going to be participating in 2, and they're both month-long. The first one that I'm going to be talking about is the Fuckathon, which is hosted by Noria Reads. This readathon is basically about saying fuck you to various oppressive structures in society. There's a group read that goes along with this readathon that I plan on doing, and that is for The Source of Self-Regard by Toni Morrison, which is a collection of essays. The Fuckathon has a bingo board, but rather than just doing one across or doing a blackout, Noria asked that we make an F. Now, the F that I'm going to be making is maybe a little bit long and weird, but fuck it, right? The first prompt is Fuck Capitalism. The book that I'm going to be reading for that is Revolution Manifesto, Understanding Marx and Lenin's Theory of Revolution. I've read a little bit of like Marx and Engels for school, and then I've read various socialist-leaning things. I'm primarily interested in looking at minority voices within leftism, in particular socialism, but this seemed like kind of a good place to start in understanding some of the original texts. The next prompt is Fuck Book Elitism, and for that I'm going to be reading A Party for Lola by Caitlin Rickey. This is a novella about a trans polycule that are putting together a birthday party for one of their partners. It sounds super wholesome. Part of the reasons that I thought that it fit Fuck Book Elitism is the fact that it's a novella, the fact that it centers romance, and the fact that it has lots and lots of queer representation, and then the fact that it is like slice of life. It's, from my understanding, not going to be some kind of super intense whatever, it's just kind of fluffy. So I'm really looking forward to it. Now, I've been trying to find more books with polyamorous representation, and I actually found out about this book from somebody on Twitter. I've got to see if they're okay with me mentioning them, and if they are, their account will be linked in the description. They have a lot of romance recommendations, polyamorous recommendation, and autistic recommendations. The next prompt is Fuck Theological Fundamentalism, and for that you're supposed to read a book that's focused on a religion that's not your own. So, since I'm a Christian, I'm going to be reading The Henna Wars, which features a Muslim main character. This is so cute. I have been excited to read it since I first saw the cover, just because it just looks super adorable. It's a sapphic book, and really as much LGBT stuff as I read, there is a surprising lack of sapphic romances, I think. This is kind of a friends to enemies to lovers, from what I understand. And there's also the discussion of cultural appropriation within this, and it just looks really sweet. The next prompt is Fuck Slut Shaming. I'm not 100% sure if I followed this prompt with this book choice, but I just went ahead and put in a romance book that I'm interested in reading. For as much sweet, wholesome romance as I read and really enjoy reading, I don't really read adult romance. I've never had a really good experience with it, but I've also never really read queer adult romance at all. So I did a little bit of research. I watched a number of Mina Reads videos because she does a whole lot with romance. So I'm going to be reading Being Hospitable by Mika James. I'm gonna be honest, I don't remember the synopsis of this book very well, and I think I'm okay with that. I'd prefer to sort of go in without totally knowing what to expect. But I'm pretty sure Mina gave this a 5-star rating, and I remember really liking her description of it. It seemed interesting enough for me to get it. The next prompt is Fuck White Supremacy, and for that prompt I will be reading Intersectionality as Critical Social Theory by Patricia Hill Collins. I am not going to say that I'm going to finish this month, but I will definitely start it for this readathon. I don't imagine it'll be super dense. I've read Black Feminist Thought by Patricia Hill Collins, which you should read if you haven't. And it was pretty accessible, so I would imagine that this is going to be at least fairly accessible. I'm really stoked to get into more Patricia Hill Collins. The next prompt on the list is fuck with yourself, and for that prompt you're actually supposed to do something just totally selfish, something totally for yourself. I don't totally know what that's going to be yet. I imagine it will involve either me buying a book or buying way more flavors of dairy-free ice cream than I actually need to. And the final prompt that I'm going to be doing for this readathon is fuck ageism. And for that prompt, you're supposed to read a book that has somebody over the age of 50 being their best self. For that, I chose Nama by Sarah Blake. This is actually a retelling of the life of Noah's wife from the Noah's Ark story. So she is like 600, well over the age of 50. I don't totally know what happens plot-wise, but I know that this book is very queer, very metaphysical and interesting, so I'm super excited for it. I heard about it forever ago, either from Sage Reads or Bowties and Books. I think I saw them both talk about it and I was like, wow, I really need to get this. I think I ended up pre-ordering the paperback and then it didn't come in until April, which is when all the stores were closed. So I had to wait and I didn't actually get this until last week. So now I have this and I'm super stoked to read it. The other readathon that I'm going to be participating in during July is the Transathon. And the Transathon's main focus is to get you to read books about trans people by trans authors, that sort of thing. The first prompt that I'm going to fulfill for this is a book written by a trans woman. I haven't actually got a physical copy of this yet, but it's on its way, and that is The Black Condition featuring Narcissus by J. Dodd. This is a poetry series that is autobiographical, so it technically also fits the nonfiction prompt. It looks like she has poetry out in several different places. There were a few books listed, as well as publications and magazines and stuff like that. So I'm really excited to see what it's like. The next prompt that I'll be covering for the Transathon is a book written by a non-binary author. And for this, I'm going to be doing something that also covers the graphic novel prompt. For this prompt, I will be reading the 4th volume of Our Dreams at Dusk by Yuki Kamatani. This is a series that focuses in on a drop-in center, basically like an LGBT community center. It sort of focuses around this one character who is gay and outed, but each other book kind of focuses on some of these other peripheral characters too. You still see the main person throughout all of them, but you also learn about the other character's story. So book number 1 is focused on the main character. The second book is focused on a gender non-conforming or possibly trans person. The third book was focused on one of the main character's classmates who seems like he is very much closeted and homophobic because of that. And this one looks like it's going to be focusing on a sapphic couple. So I'm excited for this. This one is actually larger than the others, so I'm really interested to see what happens. The next prompt is a book written by a trans man. And the book that I chose, I believe, will also cover the trans masculine representation prompt as well. That is Revolutionary by Alex Myers. This is a historical fiction novel centering Deborah Sampson, who was a woman who dressed up as a man to be in the military during the Revolutionary War. Now, of course, looking at people who were born that long ago, it's difficult to really say whether or not somebody would be trans. She did try to live after the war as a man as well, but was unable to do that. That's at least my understanding. So this is basically a look into her life as though she were a trans man, I believe. And to reiterate, I'm using she, her pronouns just because that's, as far as I know, what she used in real life. I don't know what the situation is like in the book. But something that's interesting about this book is that Alex Myers is actually related to Deborah Sampson and is trans himself. So that's super interesting. I will link the interview that he did with Jackson Bird on Jackson Bird's podcast so you can listen about it. That's actually the reason that I ended up getting this book. The next prompt for the Transathon that I'll be fulfilling is a book with multiple trans characters, and I'm actually going to be using a book that I've already talked about from the Fuckathon, and that is A Party for Lola. As far as I know, most or possibly all of the polycule is trans. And the final prompt that I'll be doing is a book with the word trans in the title, and for that I will be reading one of the books that is on my LGBT plus history TBR, and that is Black on Both Sides, A Racial History of Trans Identity by C. Riley Snorton. This looks, like the title would suggest, at history and at how gender and race, the histories of those are intertwined. I actually read the first chapter a while back, and it was a really interesting book. It was very dense. It was also really intense, just because that's a lot of really horrific stuff for somebody to have to go through. But this seems like a really interesting book and a really important book. I'm not sure that I'll be finishing it this month, kind of like with intersectionality. I definitely want to start it and read as much of it as I can, but I can't guarantee that I'm going to finish it necessarily. So that is it for what I'm reading for the month of July. If you've read any of these, definitely let me know what you thought about them in the comments. And as always, thank you so much for watching. Bye!